Everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 66 of Monster. I couldn't wait very long after that last episode because why would you leave us on that cliffhanger? Why would you do that? And I have a feeling that it's not going to matter because they're probably not going to show us what happens between Eva and Tenma. No, what's probably going to happen is they're going to show us the whole thing with Nina and Peter and then just leave us in suspense about Tenma and Eva. So as long as we are finding out answers, I'm fine because I've been told, I think it was I Swallow Apple Seeds that told me in YouTube's comments that after this episode, I can go back and read volume 8 of the manga, which is my intent before I dive into episode 67. Because then after this episode, we only have 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73. So we got 8 episodes left after this. So which 8 episodes in that giant volume of volume 9 hanging out there, I could see it. It feels that volume 9 is huge. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. After I finish the series, I'll do that extra episode. But I've got a lot of comments I want to talk about before we dive into that and things that I noticed because I realize I did talk a lot last episode for episode 65, but when I got done and was editing, I was like, oh, I meant to talk about this as well, and I forgot. I was so hyped up from last episode. I was so excited that I completely forgot like 3 talking points I had meant to talk about and was like, oh, I need to dive into those when we start episode 66 and go ahead and get those out of the way. So this may be a long introduction, but I feel the need to explain. First of all, let me get my microphone a little bit closer here. There we go. I wanted to note out that shot of Kristoff where he was sitting in front of the bookshelf and there were the 2 little plants in the foreground. He was sitting there reading the book, waiting on Johan. The first thing that I thought of was the Garden of Eden. Like he's sitting there waiting in the Garden of Eden for Johan to come back and see him. And not only that, but he had the keys to the Garden of Eden, which he got presumably from Johan, I'm assuming, right? Or he had them copied. And then we have with that same idea, the idea of Johan saving Kristoff. So anytime we've seen characters in the shadows, I meant to talk about this in the last episode. Anytime we see characters in the shadows in this series, there's a bit of uncertainty about them. Like when Tenma actually sees Kristoff get into the taxi to go to the apartment to wait on Johan, he's in the shadows at first, and when he comes out, we see that it's Kristoff. And then we also had when the police were searching Milan's room, finding all of the information on Peter, when they're talking about discovering that Peter is the guy that Milan was trying to assassinate, we see their faces are illuminated in the lamplight. So Isayama, who wrote Attack on Titan, does the exact same thing with lamps. So I'm sure that they watched Monster and took inspiration from Urasawa because anytime a character in Attack on Titan is illuminated by a lamplight or a firelight, it means they're learning knowledge. And that's what happens in Monster. The light illuminates and represents that knowledge. And then when they're in darkness, there's this uncertainty and mystery about them and possible doubt. But then we had when the kitchen sink doors open up and Johan reaches for Kristoff to save him at Kinderheim, we see that Johan is bathed in light. Like he is the keeper of all this knowledge and he's extending a hand out to Kristoff. So it kind of, if we're relating Johan having this knowledge, he also gives that knowledge to Milosh about the real world and sends him on a spiral and literally kicks Milosh out of the Garden of Eden of his childlike innocence. So in that sense, Johan is technically the devil and technically the snake in the Garden of Eden that's spreading this knowledge about how the world works to all these people. And then what do they do with that knowledge? He also is like a snake in the Garden of Eden where he's spreading the names to all the criminals in the park to have them go out and kill people. He's writing the names down. So yeah, Johan is literally a representation of the snake in the Garden of Eden. And we see Kristoff in that garden before Eva and Tenma confront him. And funny enough, Eva, whose name is derived with Eve. Ha ha! So lots of stuff going on. I was like, why didn't I talk about this last episode? And I was like, blah, blah, blah. I need to get it all out of my system. And so then that kind of ties to Johan's whole purpose. Johan, and we'll talk about this with Lyndon's comment that I'm going to talk about in a second. With Johan, he's killed Junkers. Like, he killed Junkers, like, right off the bat. But we've not really seen him kill anybody else in the series. It's been hinted at. It's been suggested. I mean, Richard, I think, would be the other person that he killed. He killed Junkers and he's killed Richard. But other than that, we've not really technically seen any confirmed kills from Johan. But it's almost as if Johan gives people knowledge, and then what they do with that knowledge, it's like he literally is the snake giving Adam and Eve the apple and being like, here, eat this, and then do with the knowledge what you will. Now, this would also work if you argue that Richard killed himself and Johan didn't kill him. He got that knowledge from the fruit that he ate from Johan and then did with it what he will. Right? So there's that. Lots of symbolism, lots of fun stuff, but we're not done talking about symbolism because of these comments. Alex Cornejo, I want you to know that I laughed so hard reading your comic that I snorted my coffee. They wrote that Monster, because we were talking about how cars are not friends in Monsters. Cars are basically like weapons of mass destruction. Everyone dies in a car or they're kidnapped. And I'm going to quote Alex Cornejo's comment on Patreon word for word because it's pretty genius. They said Monster is just a giant propaganda by big public transportation, in that trains versus cars. Basically, and I quote, "Do you want to get killed or kidnapped? Get in a car. Do you want to reconcile with your ex or meet a tall and blonde stranger packing a huge thing who will picnic with you? Take the metro." And I laughed so hard because, unfortunately, my mind went into the gutter because I love Grimmer. I ship him with Tenma, like you do. And the moment that I read, tall and blonde stranger packing a huge thing, I didn't think of duffel bags. And I'm sorry. Don't hate me. I can't help who I am. In the words of Bonaparte, you can be anything. And a massive shipper I shall be. So yeah, I thought that was hilarious. Lyndon asked if I would go back through at the very end and try to figure out who killed who. Since we now know about Johan enlisting all of the other people, since we know about Peter and Baby and the organization, since we know about Progs, all these other things going on, since we know about Kristoff wanting people dead and ordering the killings of like certain people. Yeah, it would be neat to go back, and I'm sure someone has compiled a list online of all of these things. I'm sure they've done the dirty work for me, but I obviously can't look at it because I'm not done with the series. But eventually when we're done, Lyndon, I would love to go back through and discuss that and be like, who did kill who, right? Who did shoot Dallas, right? So I thought that was interesting. And then I had two other comments. HB Banana 7 talked about how the sandbox being a metaphor, and is there any symbolism behind it? Yeah, I should have talked about it more in episode 63. But yeah, the sandbox with Johan writing all the names in it, telling the killers who to go kill. H Banana made the comment, I really liked it, of describing the murders as kind of being in this like childlike state of delusion. Yeah. And it's almost like all of the people that come out of Kinderheim are kind of in that same, like, they're stuck in this childlike mentality. Like Kristoff in the last episode had this childlike mentality of wanting to be a politician and ruling the world. That's a very childlike thing of ruling the world. You just see that in comic books and stuff, right? Which made me think of the Magnificent Steiner, which Grimmer was obsessed with as a kid, right? But even Grimmer's had moments of kind of like childlike innocence, especially when he was recalling Adolf and him liking the sweets and keeping the bug collection, right? So I do think that the sandbox is kind of a metaphor of being like stuck in this childlike state and kind of being in this delusion. And it also could be a reference to Neon Genesis. In Neon Genesis, there's a scene where Shinji is like in a sandbox kind of trapped there, and it's kind of a reference to being stuck in like a childlike state. There's some kind of Freudian psychology with it, but I have forgotten since Neon Genesis what that is. So it's there. If you go find Neon Genesis, I think it's episode 24 or 25, there's a reference there. There's a psychology there, but it has slipped my mind at the moment. But yes. Now, I don't necessarily want at this point confirmation or deconfirmation of things that I might have missed in the discussion. I would rather wait till the very end, like keep your Google Docs open, make a big old document, post it there, or go back to this episode or the episode where you need to make the comment after the fact, because like, for example, there was a commenter saying, like, oh, well, Jurgen's heard he got stuff from Johan from a certain park. I wonder where it was, if it was Grissom or not. And I'm like, well, that's kind of confirmed it, so. And I only say it because I would have liked to have, sometimes I miss stuff in the first episode when it airs, like all this stuff I've just told you before the comments. I went back during editing and figured that out and was like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to talk about that and redo it in the next episode. And if people tell me in the comments, then I'm just kind of like, oh, cool. Never mind. I don't have to talk about it anymore. So it would have been nice if I had not known about the Jurgens thing, that he also got word from Johan from the park, because what if something like that comes up in the next couple episodes and I'm like, oh, well, it's already been spoiled, so I guess it doesn't matter. So I'd rather wait and find that out at the end, right? I don't want comments to confirm things or point things out that might spoil me discovering them before the end, right? And that kind of goes along with another commenter said that they didn't really actually, they're like, I don't know why the one murderer doesn't want to talk to Rudy. Never figured that out, which tells me that it doesn't come back up in the story. So that is a spoiler because now I don't have to worry about it. It's a dead theory. But I kind of don't want dead theories. I want things to stay up in the air until the end. And then I can go, okay, it just didn't have any purpose, right? So please, no spoilers. We are so close to the end. So close. I'm going to ask my mods to be super hyper diligent. And if anything has a remote spoiler in it, I'm like, tell me not to read it. I don't want to even know because we're so close. I've got 8 episodes left after this. And I've been watching this for 66 weeks straight, y'all. Over a year. I'm so close, right? So freaking close. But yeah, I couldn't wait. I wanted to find out what was going to happen this episode. I was like, I need to know things, and now's the time. So that's where I'm at, right? So that's where I'm at. But yeah, I'm super excited to see what ends up happening. I hope you all are too. But we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right in to Monster episode 66. And see what we get. I'm so ready. I want answers. I want something. We're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. So yeah, it's fine. Yes, it's fine. Everything's great. This episode, how dare? Now we're on the roller coaster, and I'm like, are we all gonna have this meetup? Because essentially, what we're left with is Kristoff is out of the way. We have taken care of Kristoff. They are going to go to the hospital. They're not dead yet. They've not died yet. Eva, of course, has been left with the gun to defend herself, right? But she is back stuck there with Kristoff, right? Because Tenma's like, Now the question is, will Kristoff tell Eva where Tenma went? And will she chase after him? That's a big old question mark that we don't know. We don't know what's exactly going to happen. But meanwhile, at this old crumbling house that, is not symbolic in any way of the structure of family and everything falling apart and it just being exposed to being this husk that it is. No, of course not. At the crumbling house, there is finally Johan and Nina, she thinks she's going to kill Johan. The question is Tenma going to get there in time? That's the big question. Is this shootout going to happen at this house? I don't know. Johan doesn't seem to have a weapon, but he could very well have a weapon. Then there's Peter and his guards. My fear is that Peter and the guards are going to keep Nina from killing Johan. That is my fear. My fear is that Peter and the guards are not going to want Nina to kill Johan. But at this point, maybe they don't care because Peter's kind of just done. And then is Tenma going to be able to get to Johan in order to save Nina? That's our major key players that we've got on the board right now. I mean, Dieter is back with Reichwein, so we know that. And Rudy is back there as well with them. And then, of course, we have Lottie and Carl who are still around. Lunge is off somewhere randomly, But you would think if Lunge or, you know, we also have lurking in the background. I swear, I believe Grimmer is going to come back at some point. But like Lunge and Grimmer, they're nowhere near this, right? So what does this have? How are they going to show up if they're going to show up? Is this all this? We only have 8 episodes left. Do I think all 8 episodes are going to happen in this crumbling house? Maybe not, but Johan got there somehow, so there's an extra car there parked out back somewhere, or Johan floated in of his own volition, right? So I don't know, but yeah, there we go. So we've got that, right? Got all that going, and we finally find out some major notes about the backstory of the mom and the twins. We don't get to find out their names yet. Bonaparte doesn't even want to give any of these kids names because heaven forbid we give them an identity or agency, right? But now the mom's melancholy makes all the sense in the world. So the mom, Anna, who is the mom, who was a genetic engineer. All that talent going to waste, if you ask me, right? A genetic engineer. And the dad, whose name doesn't matter, was a soldier, right? God, all the images now of seeing the mom looking so melancholy and so sad all make so much sense. And Schubert and Margot grew up with her. I have to go back now and see if we see Margot in any of the pictures. But Margot and her growing up together and all this. And the idea of don't let go of my hand. That phrase. Yes. Don't let go of my hand. I swear, if Johan dies holding her hand, holding Nina's hand or something like that, over. It's over, right? Done. Because this whole episode was talking about like hands. Hands holding guns. It's just like, it's either a hand was holding a gun or it was holding another hand this entire time. Or was holding a pencil, right? So there was the idea of hands in hands that symbolized love. You had hands holding a pencil symbolizing ambition. And then you had hands holding a gun, symbolizing destruction. And in Johan's case, you probably have a hand holding a knife, slitting the throats of everybody, Sweeney Todd style, right? I've been watching another show. I won't say what show it is, but you know if you know. And there's a villain that uses like a Sweeney Todd switchblade, and some people in the Discord were like, I think that them and Johan would be friends. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I need to see the end of this series to know that for sure, but definitely a similar choice of weaponry, right? And them calling out mom. Now the question here is, we assume that it is, we don't know who is yelling mom and holding the hand. We assume that it's Nina because we cut back to Nina's memories. But then the person beside them has the bow in their hair. And I swear, I feel like Johan has been dressed up as a girl this entire time as children until when they escape at the end. But I can't prove that until we get it confirmed in the show, because as we know with Peter, Nina's memory is a little spotty and it's not the best. Like, she was confusing Peter, she was getting Peter and Bonaparte's face like hodgepodge together, and it's like, okay, so what do we do with that? And I swear the kid standing next to the mom has like golden blonde hair. Nina has golden blonde hair. And so did the dad, but Johan's hair is like pale blonde, like bleach blonde. And I think the other twin looks like they have bleach blonde hair too. So, because the hair color between Nina and Johan is both blonde, but distinctly different, right? I'm glad this episode lets us have our cake and eat it too. Also, looking at the pictures of the twins in the OP, Johan's face is covered out of almost all of them. And all we really see is Nina. So, isn't that funny? But yeah. So, yeah, chapter 66, Welcome Home. I liked the way that this entire episode used, like, the footage, like, camera reel footage, to show it looks like a home video or a home movie. And so we see the images of these kids, of this boy who kind of looks like Johan, the shadows of the trees behind him holding the truck. And then we see him pictured there, and he says, the man, who Nina kind of looks like a little bit too, right? He was a German Czechoslovakian who stayed in Bohemia after World War II. So yeah, has like the very square jaw, kind of looks a little bit like Martin slightly, but I think that I feel like the representation of Martin and Eva running away is presented to us in the form of the man and Anna, the mom, running away, right? And we see like what could have been with Anna and with Eva and Martin, except it doesn't work out anyway because Martin gets killed, and I'm pretty sure this guy gets killed too. He went on another mission, but he's dead. Like, there's no way, right? Because he tried to leave, right? Instead of, being a loyal soldier. But yeah, he clearly, like, his jaw, like, it's funny because Johan kind of favors the mom more than the dad, and Nina kind of favors the mom, but there's a little bit of a dad in her too. But it's interesting because for a long time, I thought that Johan's dad might be Bonaparte because Johan kind of, in his mannerisms, in how soft-spoken he is, and kind of how quiet he is, he doesn't seem like the dad at all, or the mom. He seems more like Bonaparte. And so I don't know if that's like an idea of kind of, nature versus nurture, if because Johan was kind of around Bonaparte a lot, he starts to take after him in his mannerisms and appearance, maybe? Especially his mannerisms. He can't in his appearance because that's genetics, but in his appearance, perhaps, could be. And maybe part of why Johan is the way that he is he's trying to imitate Bonaparte, to manipulate people. That's a very good possibility too. But yeah, I like the idea that he's the eldest son in his family. So there's other family members as well. He was the eldest son, but there were other family members too. So who knows if those family members had kids too that are like cousins to Nina and Johan, right? I like that he's kind of looking off to the side, like he could not care less in this picture. It shows a little bit about his demeanor, right? The eldest son, a soldier who graduated as a military officer, an elite who would carry his country into the future. His name doesn't matter. He just had a number attached to him. Yep. And then the woman, we see her pictures of her growing up, and she looks just like Nina, right? The only daughter of a Moravian elementary school teacher. She was the only daughter of her, and she went to university. A beautiful woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. And it says here that she attended Brno University, majored in genetic engineering. Now the question is the woman in glasses next to her Margot, or is that just another woman, right? But it doesn't matter. She carried the hopes of her teachers. And then, yeah, that's her individual. Her name doesn't matter. So, yeah, and then they met at this cafe in Prague, and they instantly fell in love, her and this guy. And then, they talk and everything's going well, and she talks about being pregnant. And then the man confesses. And this episode is so amazing. I can't wait to read it in the manga after this episode's over, before we get into episode 67. I love the idea of the hands. And so the hands are over each other. And the moment he starts telling her about the plan, her hand withdraws. Like, it's just like, oh, never mind. Good feeling gone moment. When he confesses that it was his mission. And so then we see men and women selected by their race, intellect, physique, and endurance were to have children. So they're all like, there's a bunch of military men involved, and they're all like predetermined together to have children that are going to be like the superior race, right? And they were one of those couples. And I mean, there's couples all over, so there's no telling, like, Lipsky's involved in this, like, all of this. Now, that makes the question there, Bonaparte, Lipsky's supposed to be Bonaparte's son. Is he his biological son? Or is he just his son because he was part of this experiment, right? Do all of these children become Bonaparte's children necessarily? Or is Lipsky actually a biological kid, right? And it would also make sense if Grimmer was part of this experiment because he kind of fits the mold too. There are questions. Yep. And the man completed his mission, but at that point he no longer wanted to play a part in it. So he basically says, let's run away. He's like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Let's just leave and go away. I mean, kudos to him for being like, yeah, this is messed up and I actually did fall in love with you, so I don't want you to be part of this experiment anymore. Let's run away together. And then it just doesn't work, right? What's amazing is Johan looks nothing like his dad. Not a bit. Like, Nina, you could kind of argue, favors her, both Anna and the mom, but Johan doesn't really look like either of them. So he looks more like the mom than anything. But, and that further, kind of isolates, I guess Johan looks a lot like the mom because Nina looks a lot like the mom, but I kind of like the idea of Johan not quite looking as much like either of them. So it's even more isolating for his character to not, look like Nina does, looking like the mom as well. But it's so messed up. And then they get separated. And again, the hands, you see the hands like them getting ripped apart. And it's just like that love being completely shattered. Ugh. And then what follows is her like being confined during her pregnancy and everyone telling her that the man's just on another mission and she knows it's a lie. I don't know. I personally do not have in mind to have children, so the concept of pregnancy has always scared me. I'm like, I don't like that idea. I've never felt a motherly instinct. I like babies. I like little kids a lot, but I have never once felt the urge to like have a child. It's just never, that instinct has never been there. I'm like, no, I could hold a baby all day and be like, oh, you're cute. Grow up a few years. And then I can take care of you. And I think I could take care of a baby if I adopted one, but I've never had the urge to like, go through childbirth and have a kid. So the concept of being isolated while you're pregnant is like such body horror. It's such terrifying. And the fact that knowing you were just part of an experiment is absolutely gruesome. When she was moved to the labor or delivery room, I was really afraid that she saw something that she could hurt herself with. And for a split second, I forgot that she did legit have the kids. And I was like, wait, she has the children. Never mind. So I was like, oops, nope, we're good. She actually has the kids. We're fine. But I worried about it for a hot second. I was like, wait a minute. Is she going to be okay? But for her to be so, like, for her carrying twins full term to go through an air duct, no wonder she collapsed as soon as her water broke, because it's like, she doesn't, well, how could she not? And then the idea that all these people are creepily watching over her while she's pregnant and she's confined in this little room and it's like a prison because there are bars over the windows and they kept the window open. So it's like the worst tease. It's like, oh, you want to jump out and kill yourself? Sorry, you can't. There are bars. It's like, oh my God. And then we have Bonaparte showing up to sketch her. And the look she gives him when he says, show me your face, the glare that she gives him is so poignant. It is so intense. I'm like, oh my God. It is the face of a woman that just is so hateful. And so the thing about it is, Lunge found the monster's love letter, where he fell in love with her and subsequently the children, because they're the ones he followed. Because if you think about it, why them? Right? Of all the couples that you paired together in this experiment, of all the couples of all of this, why specifically her and the twins? And one excuse could be, well, because these twins look like the Aryan race, the master race that Hitler wanted. They're blonde hair, blue eyes, coming from a genetic bioengineer's children and a man that was in the military that was the prime specimen. Like, of course, by all accounts, Johan and Nina should be the prime children. What's funny about that is that Johan doesn't really quite, he fits more in the intelligence aspect with being the son of a biogenetic engineer, the mom. He has the intelligence like the mom does, right? It's kind of funny because going back, he kind of has more the intelligence, I think, than the brawn. Now, I'm not saying Johan isn't strong and Johan can't defend himself. I'm sure he can, and I'm sure he has, and I'm sure he's going to, but he's not like a Martin. Johan's not like a buff dude that you would expect, like his dad, he's got more of the intelligence that his mom does. Meanwhile, you have Nina, who did the Taekwondo and all of the like self-defense classes early on. She's got the strength to defend herself along with being smart, right? But she seems to take more after the dad, and Johan takes more after the mom. It just is such a waste of a character, right? Because the mom was a freaking genetic engineer. And instead she's just put in this guinea pig cage to get preggo and have twins. Like, that's such a waste. Like, girl could like solve equations. Why weren't you using that part of her brain? Nope, she's got a womb. That's all she's good for. It's like, it's so disgusting. But then again, you know, Baby and them have been pretty misogynistic this whole time, so should we be surprised? Right? Should we be surprised? But it's such a waste. She's like such a talent. And then instead she just gets confined. But the point I'm getting at is that Bonaparte falls in love with her. And that's one of the reasons why he's so obsessed with her and the twins, is that he's in love with her. And obviously she doesn't love him back. Because why would you? He destroyed your life and ruined your chance with a man you actually loved. So it's kind of messed up. It's really messed up, right? It's so messed up. And I wonder too if maybe Bonaparte just never could fully grasp emotions, and he didn't get why she wouldn't love him. And so he's just like, well, all of the army that I raise will be emotionless as well. So they don't, or maybe he had so much emotion, but then he was heartbroken when she rejected him that he's like, well, then I'll just have, it reminded me of Doctor Who a little bit. Like in Doctor Who, there's a character called Davros, and Davros creates like the main villain of the series, which are the Daleks. And in that series, the Daleks, Davros, he erases emotions from the Daleks. So the Daleks can't feel emotion. They can't feel anything. They're just killing machines. That's literally all that they're good for, right? And then you come to find out in one of the episodes that because of like, in Doctor Who, time is all wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. Things, timelines get altered all the time. But because of one character's specific actions, the Daleks are given this sense of mercy, which is kind of interesting. But this entire scenario, Davros reminds me of Bonaparte, and then the children of Kinderheim that he's trying to cultivate. It's like he's trying to create a little soldier army of Daleks, basically. So that's so fascinating to me. But yeah, and she's like, I will never forgive you. And even if I die, the children growing inside of me will have revenge on you. And he just stops sketching at that point and says to her, you're saying some really interesting things. Because in his mind, he wants that cycle of revenge, right? That's kind of the whole point, is that she, the mom, this cycle of revenge, that it would go to her children and back to Bonaparte, right? That's where it would go. But the thing about it is that Nina and Tenma's whole thing is Tenma wants to stop the cycle of revenge. He's like, no, we're not going to have this cycle of revenge. This is stupid. It just begets revenge over and over again. The question is going to be, you know, what is Nina's goals? Tenma is trying to get rid of Johan to stop the cycle. And he's like, I've got to be the one to do it. I'm the outsider that's stepping into this equation. I'm going to be the one to stop this scenario. So there we go. Meanwhile, Nina, she seems like she's stopping Johan in order to save Tenma, right? So the motivations are a little bit different amongst everybody. So that's what's going to be interesting is Tenma going to get there and be able to, what is he going to bring to the table with the situation? Is he going to diffuse anything? I don't think so. I think it's going to get even more intense. But, you know, I guess the big thing is, if Johan's taken out here at the house, then what about Bonaparte? Because they still think Bonaparte is alive. So that's going to be the big question. And what I'm so amazed by is the fact that Johan doesn't explain any of this. But I don't think Johan cares. So I think Johan, his whole thing has been, he's given people knowledge, and he's given people these scenarios, and then he's kind of just let people run with it. He's like, oh, hey, here's the names of these people. What are you going to do about it? And then the criminals go kill them. or he gives Milosh this information, like, here, I'm going to send you somewhere to learn about the world. And then he just kind of skirks away. And so Johan just presents people with information or a scenario where they can learn knowledge, and then he just leaves. So I'm like, would Johan, if he confronted Bonaparte, what would Johan do? I kind of want to find out. That's the sad thing. I kind of want Nina and Tenma and Bonaparte and Johan to all be in the same room, but the question is, when's that going to happen and how can that happen? So it's like, I want Bonaparte to get confronted if he's still alive and for them to stop him, but we haven't seen Bonaparte yet except for these flashbacks. So what do? I do love the whole thing with the barbed wire, and they're clearly like in this camp or whatever while she's being watched, and you see the little white fluttering piece of fabric, like a white flag waving, like surrender. Like the imagery in this episode, it was so good. It was so good. And then, yeah, she put her plan into action. She ain't dumb, right? But when you're 9 months pregnant, you can only do so much. And then we see Peter seeing the children as they're sketching, right? Johan and Nina. And he's like, don't concern yourself with unnecessary things. Because she wants to name them. She's like, I've thought of them, their names. And he's like, well, you didn't have to. And she's like, names. She's like, I want them to have names. I'm sad that she has the exact same clothes on, right? She's like, give them names. And then we see Bonaparte, who, you know, Johan kind of fashions himself to look somewhat similar to. Bonaparte is terrifying. He really is. He's just such a terrifying person because of how quiet he is, but he's the mastermind behind all of this. And he's like, oh, don't worry. They don't need names. So that's the thing. There's this talk about names and labels, right? But we know that names, they not only give people agency, but they give them power. They give them power, but they can also create labels that can restrict them. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But they also are a way that we connect with others. If you know someone's name, you can make a connection with them, right? But if you don't know their name, then they can easily be forgotten. And that's kind of the point about the Kinderheim kids, is the ones from Kinderheim, they don't need agency because they need to be soldiers. They don't need to be autonomous. They need to just follow a collective. They don't need the power to act individually. No. They don't need a label that will make them anything but what Bonaparte wants them to be. They don't need a connection with anybody else because they're being brainwashed to work for the experiment. And they need to be easily forgotten. If something goes awry, then they can just, oh, the kid's gone. But nobody knows who they were. So, doesn't matter. So yeah, so there's that, right? And I think Wolf kind of, interestingly enough, foils the plan a little bit when he gives Johan his name, right? And it's just kind of ironic that it's from the book that Bonaparte wrote, you know? But yeah, just the idea of names, and Bonaparte didn't want them to have any names, but they got them anyway. And so Nina's trying to process all of this, and she's like, Bonaparte is alive, the guy that like messed everything up. And Peter repeats what was said to them. And then I kept thinking something was going to happen in the car, but then they show up where the house is. But I was like, the moment those tires were screeching, I'm like, I swear, Alex Cornejo, you are right. This whole series is against cars. Cars are bad modes of transportation in the 90s in Germany. Just stay away from them. If I go to Germany, I'm not getting in a car or a taxi. I'm going to take a train. Everywhere's a train. A train, a horse, a cart. I will take a gondola through Italy, but I'm not getting in a car. No way, no how. Because, yeah, you just keep thinking something bad's going to happen. And they show up to this dilapidated, like, just worn down house that's just got everything tore up around it, right? In the middle of nowhere, right? This mansion in the middle of nowhere. What's interesting is it kind of looks similar to the Red Rose Mansion a little bit, but it's all completely, like, worn out and destroyed. It's in the process of being torn down. I like what it represents, that it's the process of being ripped apart. And that's literally what we've been doing this season, is ripping apart the foundation of the story bit by bit till we like expose the frame and the foundation of it, right? We're getting to the foundation of the house in this story, and it's really great. We get to have our cake and eat it too in this episode. I was really glad, because I thought when we went back to Kristoff's story with Eva and Tenma that we were only going to get to hear and we weren't going to find anything else about. I thought the last time we saw the house, that was going to be it, and then we were going to be stuck here with Tenma and Eva and them, and I was like, I thought that was going to be the case. I was going to be like, okay, it's fine, but it wasn't fine, you know, but that's not what ends up happening, so that's good. That's great. We don't have to worry about that, right? Good deal. So yeah, we go back to Kristoff, and Kristoff claims he doesn't know where Johan is or where he could be. But my thing is, he was waiting in the apartment, the studio apartment for Tenma. Well, when Tenma and Eva showed up, he was waiting for Johan. And if he knew where Johan was, why was he waiting in the apartment? Unless he knew somebody else was, unless it was part of the plan for him to wait until further notice from Johan. And Johan just said, well, if I'm not here, then this is where I am. But he could have told Tenma the wrong place. We don't know. That's the one thing I just thought about. Is Tenma even going to the crumbling house? Or is Tenma going to show up somewhere completely? Is Tenma going to show up where Bonaparta is? That would be interesting if Nina was stuck with Johan and Tenma ended up where Bonaparta was. But I'm worried about Nina, so I kind of want Tenma there to back Nina up. But then I'm like, are they going to shoot Johan? What do we do with this? So Johan literally has the high ground. He's in a weird position, because is her shot good enough to shoot him with the sun glaring down at her? That's a really good question. He's kind of put himself where, yeah, you could shoot me if you want to, but I'm going to put you at a place of disadvantage, right? And could Johan escape in the car if he manages to dodge her bullet? She seems like she's going to tell a story next episode and help fill in the gaps even more, which would be amazing. So that'd be great. That would be great. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. So I'm presuming Kristoff, I don't know if he's going to live or die. The ambulance is coming. But obviously the police go by like they're looking for something. And Eva threatens to shoot him. But again, Tenma does not want her to become a killer. He doesn't want anybody to become a killer except him. So he has her go to the payphone to call the hospital. And he knows that she'll do it because he asked her to. And that's when Kristoff says that you're the same. You can't kill anyone. You're always saving people. And I like at this point that Tenma doesn't deny it. Tenma doesn't say, no, you're wrong. He just kind of looks at him like, and what about it? Which I like. I like that he's gone from being like, you're wrong, to just kind of being this indifferent, just accepting it like, whatevs, okay. And that's when he says that he's like, I'll tell you where Johan is. And Tenma's like, okay, good, we're here. And then Eva goes back and he says he left and he had a message. I can't get you involved in this. I ruined your life, and I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Please be happy. Yep. And then he asks why she's crying, because Kristoff is from Kinderheim, he doesn't understand emotions. And that's so wild to me, is the idea that because he's from 5'11", he doesn't understand how emotions work. And that kind of makes him a lot like Grimmer in that sense, which is so sad, because it's like Grimmer, whose name suggests somebody that's really dark and sinister, is the absolute opposite of it. He's actually, Grimmer is not grim at all. He's kind and compassionate. He just doesn't understand emotions, or that this is how he is. And he's trying to understand that, but he goes about it with such a warmth to him. Whereas you have Kristoff, whose name literally has Christ in it, and he's the polar opposite of that. So it's like names. Am I right? But I think that's so interesting, because even though even though Bonaparte seems to place so much burden on names and so much negativity, I think Kristoff and Grimmer are proof that you are not defined by your name. You very much can be the polar opposite of it, and that's fine. So that's so fascinating to me, right? But yeah, and then he's like, "Why are you crying?" He's like, "I don't understand it at all." Because, yeah, she's just like, Tenma's left me again, and how can I be happy without him and without Martin? And, I'll be honest, at this point in the series, I had a very different expectation of Eva. When I was around episode 15 through 20, it was when Eva first showed back up and she was all being in her villain era. Mm-hmm. When she was enlisting Lunge to help her find Tenma, and she was in her revenge era, right? I had an idea in my head. I was like, by the time I get to episode like 70, she's going to be hunting Tenma down and she's going to try to get him killed. That's what I thought. I thought Eva was going to be this like late game villain that was going to like develop and grow as a villain throughout the course of the series. And she was going to be more of a threat to Tenma than Johan was. And I'm so happy I was wrong. And that I love that through Martin, ironically enough, through this mercenary, the miracle happens and the cycle of revenge is cut short, and she and Tenma make up and reconcile, and it's beautiful, and I would never have imagined it. I didn't see it coming, but I love it. It's so good. And I'm so glad that they're at this point in the series where they are, they've kind of moved on, but they still care about each other. It's just really sad because Eva's like, you want me to be happy, but you're putting yourself in harm's way and you won't involve me. So how can I be happy? It's like, I also like the transition of Eva with the gun crying, and then Nina turns the corner with the gun. Again, hands. They're either holding hands, holding a pencil, or holding a gun. There is not much exception in this episode. And then I liked the shot of the chandelier in the light, like the source of light had been destroyed, almost like the source of knowledge was wrecked, and there's all this darkness, but then she sees the staircase, and it looks very similar to the staircase of the Red Rose Mansion. The stairs go opposite ways. I like the idea of you have twins. You have Nina and Johan coming to this like crossroads with each other, and the staircase goes two separate ways. Also looks kind of like an angel wing. Lots of visual representation. The windows are broken, showing that like the soul is shattered because, like windows to the soul. It's so interesting. And then there's the random Shinji chair. The Shinji chair makes an appearance. I was like, we were talking about Neon Genesis and the sandbox in the intro, and then that Shinji chair is there, and I'm like, well, I'm fully expecting Nina to be sitting Shinji style in that chair by the end of episode 67. Right? Oh my god. Fully expecting it. But yeah, I don't know if there's a significance to showing us all the little knickknacks around the mansion, if we're going to come back to them, if this house has significance or not. Why did Johan pick it? I feel like Johan wouldn't just pick some random place unless it had a purpose. So why this? And then she sees him standing on top of the final floor looking down at her. It's so beautiful how she's bathed in the light and he's in the shadows. And she's like, Johan. And then it shows her going up the stairs, kind of like she walked up the stairs to get to that point to find him. The door opens up, right? But it looks like it's from Johan's perspective, maybe. But then when it goes up and it's them, the hair is, it's not the same color as Nina's. And then there's the phrase, welcome home. It's Johan, right? And then the three frogs, and Johan lights the fire, and they ran. So that part gets filled in the gaps. And he's like, the flames are coming. And then they run away and make it to the two older people that take care of them for a while. And the thing about it is that the two people were nice. They were acting legitimately like you would with two kids that you just discovered. They're like, well, because the woman's like, could we take them in and raise them? And the husband's like, no, we can't steal someone else's children. We'll just call the police and let them know there's two missing kids. But Johan overhears that and says, no, Nina and I are escaping. Bye. And so the question becomes, was it something triggered within Johan, like with Grimmer? Because with Grimmer, whenever he got super anxious and stressed, that's when the Magnificent Steiner would come out and would attack people. And so with Johan, is that a similar situation when Johan feels stressed and feels at his wit's end? Does he end up lashing out? And did he lash out because he felt that they were threatened and Nina was in danger? Is that what it is? Is it him being a brother? But then, he tells her to shoot him, and it's like... And does he want her to shoot him because of what he's done and the guilt that he has? He told her that once before, but... It's just so creepy. Her picking the flowers, and then her, like, asking off screen about him, and then him leading her away. He says, I told you I have a plan. And it's like, well, what is the plan? I want to know what Johan's plan has been, because he's told Nina he's had a plan. He's told Kristoff he's had a plan. I'm sure he's told everybody else he's had a plan. But what is it? And is there a plan at all? Or is it all just been just BS? Oh my God. And we're so close to finding answers. And it's all like slowly, it's like a little faucet. It's trickling out all of the answers. But, this flower scene and the way they handled it, where he like went off with her and he gave her a hand. He's like, let's go. And he takes her hand because he loves his sister. I have no doubt that Johan loves his sister, and that everything he does, there is a part of it that's for her. It does. I am glad she brings up the beginning, though, where she's like, you trying to get me to come to that castle, you killing my foster parents, you doing all this, like, you've killed all these people or had them killed. Why? Because I don't think the Lieberts were in with Bonaparte. I don't think so. But, And then he's like, back then when I ran away from the Red Rose Mansion, I arrived at the door of the Free Three Frogs. So this time I'll say it to you. Welcome home. Ooh, that's such a chilling line. I came to see you on your 20th birthday in Heidelberg. A lot of time has passed. And she's like, you came to see me. You came to kill the Fortners, the Lieberts, and all the people who were kind to us. All of them. You killed them all. And then we flash back and see poor Tenma and Morer. I forgot about Morer. Yeah, and Tenma just crying over him, right? Tenma's come a long way too, because we see Tenma with the shadow there and all the compassion and emotion, and now it's just like, now Tenma's just in a rush to find them, and having the driver. I like that transition where we go from Nina to Tenma, and there's that memory that connects them together. And then with the driver being like, sure, it's a nice day. And I'm like, I don't trust any blonde drivers at all. I know we're in Germany and a lot of them are blonde, but get out of the car. And he says, driver, could you go a bit faster? And then we have this triangle where it's Johan in the middle. Nina shot him. Tenma saved him. And they're both trying to like rectify and correct things from the past. And oh my God, it's incredible, right? Huh. And so then he's like, are you going to shoot me like you did back then? And she says, yes, I'm going to end it all. And that's when he says, what is the end? What is the end of this? And he says, the end. And we see the floor cracked, the chair, the end. We see the room full of people. So he's like, I've seen a lot of ends. He's like, I saw the room full of all the people poisoned from the party. That was supposed to be the end of things. But it didn't end there. And he's like, he saw the end at Kinderheim where it burnt down, but that didn't end there. And it sees him in the throne watching it. And then he's seen his mom and Bonaparte, the end. And then the end when they were supposed to die out at the border, but they didn't. He's like, I've seen the end many times. But what is the end? Yeah, because it's like, if you kill me, is this really over? Does this all end? Does it really? Or is it going to keep going? What does it mean for it to end? Because he's like, when I burnt down Kinderheim, I thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't. The experiments kept going. And he's like, when I was at the border, I thought that our lives would end there, but did not. So I get Johan saying, like, if you kill me, what is it going to do? What's going to be the future after that? And she's like, I'm ending it. You will die, and so will I. She's like, if they think that you're going to be the leader of this master race, I'll end that. And then I'll kill I don't want her to kill herself. So I'm like, no, Nina, don't kill yourself. Tenma wouldn't want that. No. She's like, if I kill you, they'll probably kill me, but that will stop us from being the leaders of their experiment. But again, it's not stopping the system. It's just getting 2 cogs out of the wheel, but the wheel keeps going. They'll just replace you with new cogs. So I really, at this point, I want Johan to tell what he's thinking. Like, is Johan's plan kind of like Grimmer's, to uproot the system and stop the system? Or is his object, his MO, Bonaparte? I want Johan to talk and for us to get what he has to say, but Johan doesn't seem interested in talking, which is the frustrating part. He doesn't seem like he wants to communicate. He's just like, make up your mind if you're going to kill me or not. And then she's like, what did you see? And then everything lightens up and we see his face. And I'm like, tell us the answer. Like, what did you see at the end? What is this? And I love that it goes, and then she's like, you don't know anything. And we cut to Tenma like he's Jon Snow. You know, you don't know anything, Jon Snow. I like that we cut to Tenma, who's trying to think about what's ahead. And then we cut back to Johan, who just looks kind of melancholy at her. And his hair is the thing that makes him look so much like Bonaparte is his hair is parted the same way that Bonaparte's is, which is frustrating. Because I'm like, if you don't like Bonaparte, why are you imitating him? And she's like, I'll tell you a truly frightening tale. Because I'm guessing that this is her memories that she has all her memories back, and she's waiting to tell him. And then she opens up the door with the bow on. And then she looks inside the door, and we hear, I'm home. So is she home? Is the brother home? What are we going to get? What are we going to get? We're so close to finding out things. It's like, I want to know more. We're so damn close. And we're finally getting answers. And it's like, what are we going to do about Bonaparte? I don't know. At this point, they're all at this damn house. And I'm like, but what are we going to do about that? How are we going to stop what? No! Where are we going to from here? Tenma! They're out in the middle of nowhere. It's literally like Seven, the movie. I don't know. I don't know, y'all. But I'm excited to see what happens next. So next week, I am going to look at Volume 8 of the manga. So for episode 67, I will be talking about Volume 8 of the manga. I'm going to be reading it, and then I'm going to point out any differences, things that I notice, things like that. So that'll be fun. But I am curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers. I am so close. So if you've got confirmations of theories, things like that, just save them till the end. We'll talk about it then. But, oh my God, we're so close. We're down to 8 episodes, and I'm not ready. But we can't stop now, so what can we do? But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I'll be back very soon with more Monster. Bye!